this meeting of the Cannon Beach Planning Commission to order. And is there any objection to pass approving the agenda by consensus? Okay, approved. Minutes, I have a question here. I think one other person too. On page 3 or 4, I should have brought this up when we were talking before. Right about in the middle of the page at the end of the paragraph, you noted there is no previous planning commission decision on record for this property. This is the Austria property, and there's even a note, I think, on the next page, commenting on the fact that we've had some applications on this before.
Yeah, and that was, you're right, you've previously acted on this. What I meant was that there was no history that explains why that house was over height.
Oh, okay.
And you're right, the minutes should be corrected to reflect that.
Okay, if you just amend that to reflect that. Anybody else have any?
Up to this point.
No, we'll fix it.
Okay, any objection to approving that by consent? By consent? Okay, moving ahead. This is a quasi-judicial public hearing regarding the consideration of V17-01 Wayfarer Restaurant fence located at 1190 Pacific Street. The applicant requests a variance to allow construction of a fence south of the existing Wayfarer Restaurant patio. The fence intermittently exceeds maximum fence height limits. The property is located at 1190 Pacific Street, max lots 10200, 10300, and 510303, and in a residential motel RM zone. The property is owned by Stevens Investment Group and leased by Sir Sanders Resort LLC. Municipal Code Chapter 17.54, Section 17.54, 4.020B establishes maximum fence heights. The request will be reviewed against the criteria of the Municipal Code Section 17.84.030, variances, criteria for granting. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission to hear this matter at this time? Does any commission member believe he or she has a conflict of interest? Does any commission member believe he or she has a personal bias? Does any commission member had any ex parte contacts? Has any commission member made a site visit? Okay. Is there a standard?
Yes, thank you. This is as you said, a variance request to the maximum fence height requirement. The fence height requirements there on the first page of the staff report for this fence along a side property line. Most of the relevant fence height standard is 6 feet, except for the portion of the fence that gets into the oceanfront setback where it drops to 3 feet. So 6 and 3 feet are the two numbers here that our standards would require as a maximum fence height. A good segment of that fence is at 8 feet as proposed. There's a short 6-foot segment, clearly compliant, and then a longer 4-foot segment. The westernmost part of that is 1 foot over the height limit. So you're looking at a variance to the 8-foot section and a small part of the 4-foot section. This was the reasons for this have a long history. The short answer is that there's a two-family residence on the south side of the property line, the Wayfarer's outdoor patio on the north side of the property line. There are conflicts between those uses related to outdoor noise and activity, and the Wayfarer owners and the owners of that house have reached an agreement about this fence as a way to mitigate some of those impacts. And you have a letter from the adjoining property owner, Nick Sears, in your record that kind of memorializes his agreement to this. He's not the applicant, but he is the adjoining property owner affected by this. This went to the design review board and they approved the design. Normally, we would take a matter like this to the Planning Commission first and then go to the Design Review Board. The reason it's seemingly backwards here is that when we got to the Design Review Board, it was only once we'd advertised it that it became apparent that there were non-compliant parts of this fence. So I gave the Design Review Board kind of the option, and the applicants also an option. You can pull back your horns, wait for the Planning Commission to act on it, and then act on it, or you can act on it knowing that it's possible that the Planning Commission may reach a different solution that conceivably require the applicant to go back to the DRB. So even though this is backwards from our normal procedure, the Design Review Board and the applicant are aware of the possible risks of that. I guess the reason it got scheduled that way is it's at least in part my fault for not recognizing earlier that this was a variance situation rather than a purely design review situation. If this had been a compliant height fence, of course, you would not be seeing it. It would have been entirely design review because it's an exterior alteration on a commercial building. That said, the staff report goes through the variance criteria. There are some photographs at the end of the staff report showing how this sits on the property. We just handed out to you some 11 by 17 drawings of this. These are the same drawings that the Design Review Board saw. They should have been included in your packet. That was my fault that they weren't. I'm sorry about that you have not had enough time to really look at these in detail. The fence height drawing is on page 2 of that packet that shows the step down design of the fence. And then page 1 shows kind of the general site plan. This is on the south property line adjoining that house to the joint property line between the two properties. The house south is the adjoining property owned by Mr. Sears. That's all I have in the way of the staff report, unless you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. I gather there's no further correspondence other than...
You have everything right now,
okay.
I would like to do a question. The deck it's said to be an existing deck. How long has that deck been there?
Well, I'll let the applicant answer that directly, but it pre-exists our code requirement that would have required review of it. So it's a grandfathered feature for this restaurant. But the actual evolution of that deck, I don't have the dates in front of me.
Any other questions before we proceed to public testimony? Okay, this is the call for public testimony. And the pertinent criteria to be considered are noted in the staff reports and listed on the criteria sheets next to the west building. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward those criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan and municipal code, which the person testifying believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision makers and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal based on that issue. Prior to the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, which is, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional testimony, arguments, or evidence regarding the application. The Planning Commission shall grant such requests by continuing the public hearing or leaving the record open for additional written testimony, arguments, or evidence. Persons who testify shall first receive recognition from the chair, state their full name, mailing address, and if appearing in a representative capacity, identify whom they represent. Is there a presentation by the applicant?
Yes.
Sir?
My name is Dave Norstead. My address is P.O. Box 701, Cannon Beach. I'm here as a representative of Martin North, previously known as Martin Hospitality. We just changed our name, so we have direction now. So, first of all, in terms of the age of the existing deck, it predates me. I've been with the company for about 16 years, and the nearest we can come is that it's at least 20 years old. So no one currently with the company really knows. I think it's somewhat important to understand maybe the history, a little bit of our relationship with Mr. Sears next door. A couple of years ago, we sought minor modification approval to add a lower patio area to the existing deck. We got approval for that. We went ahead and built it. Mr. Sears came to town that weekend for the first time in 2 years and was very upset with it. The city asked us to not use it anymore. We did actually end up using it for July and August, and then we closed it after Labor Day and then removed the deck after that, or the existing patio. At a fairly significant cost to us, but since then we have, Mr. Sears' contention in that was he was attempting to sell that property and he felt like it was an encumbrance to him. Of course, the deck and the restaurant existed when he bought the property in 2008. But needless to say, we felt, and this is basically, I think our owners approached almost everything. We want to be good neighbors in any way we can. So we went to him and talked to him about what we could do to mitigate both the noise as well as the visual interruptions that he has a tenant downstairs that's actually an up and down duplex would experience. And we asked our architect to look at it and we came up with this plan. It's a little bit more than a fence. It's actually a two-sided fence and meant to really do everything it can to control the noise levels. Eventually, we'll also have a Leland cypress hedge on the south side, Mr. Sears' side of the property. And that will also help some, both visually as well as maybe taking a little bit of that noise. But I think the height for the fence is important because if we just went with a 6-foot fence off the ground, we'd probably have 4 or less than 4 feet as the barrier for both the sound and the visual appeal there. And I just don't think it might have a slight impact, but it really wouldn't do much, at least in terms of that's what our architect believes. So the fence should impact no one but these 2 properties. And we feel it's important too for our guests to have maybe more sense of intimacy out there and not feel like they're maybe looking right into someone's home. It's certainly less than an ideal situation, but we feel like it also, the wall, meets some of the comprehensive plan intentions in terms of mitigating or buffering the areas between a commercial and a residential zone. So, any questions I can answer?
So I was wondering where the property line is. When I took a look at it, it looked like the little 3-foot Escalonia hedge that's closest to the ocean. If that property is 5 feet away, it looks like that hedge is actually on your property.
That's
So
correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, it's actually the Stevens property, but the property we lease, yes.
Repeat that?
The Stevens own the land, but yes, that is the property that we lease.
So that little hedge is your property?
Yes.
Oh.
Robin?
And I don't know how this fits our decision making, but I do know the winds are pretty strong through there sometimes. So how much support are you providing to that?
Those are certainly things that will be considered. I mean, whether it means that we sink those posts, a little bit deeper than we typically would. I think that the fence itself will be pretty structurally sound, having boards on both sides, and the Leland cypress might cut it a little bit. And most of it is the 8-foot section, at least, is east of the corner of Mr. Sears' house. So we know it's not going to stop all of them, but hopefully it's enough. So, yeah, there is that.
So the cypress, that planting would be on the south side of the fence?
Correct.
So is there enough room to plant?
Yeah, I think that the existing deck is roughly a foot inside our property line. Is it that far?
Yeah, the plan says 3.
Yeah, so I think that and Mr. Sears is certainly willing to have a piece of that hedge on his property as well. In fact, his initial design, he actually came up with the original design here, had only left a 3-foot walkway on his side of the hedge. And so we've moved the deck in a little bit to accommodate that.
You realize how tall those cypress can be?
Yeah, and we plan to trim them as though they were arborvitae, I think.
So right now then, on the east side of that property is, and you can see this on page 6, you have an Escallonia hedge there. It looks like it's a double row hedge, but it doesn't, it's like 12 feet high.
It's very high, yes.
And so, in Sears' letter, he was talking about the difficulty of growing a hedge, and there's no difficulty growing that kind of hedge.
Yeah.
But what I'm wondering about is, who maintains that Escallonia hedge that's on the east side?
We will.
Okay. But have you considered using that plant material rather than cypress?
The Escallonia?
Yeah.
We have, and our landscaper tells us that at least out near, although we already have an Escallonia hedge there, but some of it is dead. The salt will eat away at that more than it will with leaving the cypress trees. We just, I'm not sure why that decision was made. I guess it was a decision made by our architect and our landscaper after discussing about what the best plant material would be.
I'm trying to figure out why you've gone from 8 feet down to the 6 and then down to the 3. When you're on the deck and you're looking out to the ocean, it seems to me you're impeding the vision of the ocean from the deck by that small section. There
isn't a lot of view through that, even from the restaurant, through that little, so that right where it sets down to 6 feet, there's it's the beginning of an outdoor patio, and there's also one above, so it's kind of defined by a couple of posts there, and it's only through that section that it's 6 feet. And it may take a little bit of a view, but I think the majority of the view is west of that and beyond that. So, and the 4 feet section, I guess I was not aware that was a code issue. And I'm guessing that could be changed, but there is an elevation difference there, and that's something I guess I kind of always struggled with. It could be 4 feet on our side, but it would only be 3 feet on his side. So I'm not sure how that plays out.
Well, I guess my concern is your 4 foot and 3 foot section out near the end as to what it's going to do.
Yeah,
I enjoy sitting out on the deck.
Again, it would not be any higher than the existing Escallonia hedge there. Am I correct in that? Come on.
BJ Quick, 34094, West Kimball Loop, Seaside, Oregon, facilities director for Martin North. Out in front of Mr. Sears' property, there's actually a concrete wall that sits out there. So that hedge essentially would not go past his height. He already has that in effect. Our wall would actually be a little bit below that, so the view from anywhere sitting in the restaurant on the deck would not be impeded at all. The reason for the 6 foot is when you're standing on Mr. Sears' front deck, standing there, you have visual impact to the right-hand side of the restaurant. We're trying to alleviate if somebody wants some kind of intimacy sitting on his deck, they're not going to see the restaurant. And that's the reason for the drop down for that portion. We're just trying to be good neighbors, Mr. Sears.
So the fence, is it going to be solid wood on both sides? Or, I mean, there's not going to be any gaps between the wood on the...
That's how it's designed. I questioned that myself, but our architect feels fairly strongly that we can make that work.
Big sale.
I suppose one thing that could help that maybe would be to use 4x6 posts instead of 4x4 or something like that. Could give you a little bit more strength.
How big is the fence?
How thick? So the posts are 4x4s, so 3.5, and then I think it's roughly 3/4 or a full inch on each side. I think there is a profile view of that.
I guess they would be worried about having the thing blow away, you could fill the spaces between the three foot concrete. Stay put. Or if it ever blew down, you could replace it with something really, really solid without anybody being able to tell.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there presentations by proponents? Are there presentations by opponents? Is there a staff response?
One of the questions came up there about the structural integrity of the fence. The 8-foot section of the fence is subject to a building permit because it's over 6 feet in height. Whether Alton or building official will then just review the whole fence or not, I don't know. But the 8-foot section certainly is subject to a building permit. I also note on the second page on this small sketch detail to the right, he has those posts set 3 foot deep in 12 by 12 inch sonotubes. So it's, I don't know if this fence will stand up. It'll be like one of the stoutest fences in Cannon Beach.
Thank you. The applicant wish to make additional statements?
No.
Okay. I have no reason to believe that the hearing is being continued, so I'm closing the public hearing and moving to consideration.
I move to approve the application.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Okay. Alicia?
Commissioner Johnson,
No.
Commissioner Risley,
Yes.
Commissioner Burnt, Commissioner Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Patrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett,
Yes.
Chair Lundy.
Yes.
The decision document on this should go out tomorrow.
Okay. Is there a motion to authorize the chair to sign the appropriate orders? Is there a second?
Second.
Alicia?
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Risley,
Yes.
Commissioner Burnt,
Yes.
Commissioner Kerr,
Yes.
Commissioner Patrick,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett,
Yes.
Chair Lundy.
Yes. Okay, any comments on the tree report?
I was just wondering about native trees being planted. Is there any plan for that?
Yeah, well, the number of trees planted by the city is low because this is the summer months and it just isn't the time of year
To do it.
and they don't have the time to do it this time of year. So I think you'll see that number creep up as we get into
Okay.
the different part of the year. If that was the question you were asking.
Yeah,
Related to that
well,
is,
I just was thinking,
well,
maybe you could put a number that you anticipate doing.
Replace.
I'm not sure they planned it out in that detail, but I'll look at it. I guess related to that though is when you amended the tree removal ordinance, when the council amended it based on your recommendations, I think those amendments went into effect in January. There was a tree replacement requirement, and that included a list of native trees, and that we've been enforcing that on tree removal permits going forward. You don't see that on this table though.
Yeah, no.
Okay, thank you. Are there ongoing planning items?
Two quick items. and this seems far away, but it's not. Your November meeting, of course, is on Thanksgiving Day. Typically, you've had it moved that to that Monday of that week, which would be the 20th. You don't have to make that decision now, but if you take a look at your calendars and want something different, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to sort of soft pencil that in for the 20th. Your December meeting would be the 28th. Christmas would be Monday the 25th, so you're in that kind of that dead zone between Christmas and New Year's. If that works for you, I'm happy to leave it at the 28th. If you want to go the week ahead of time, the 18th, 19th, and 20th, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are theoretically open to you. Again, you don't have to decide that tonight, but we will have to make a decision about those dates.
Is there a problem with having the planning commission meeting before the DRB meeting?
No, you could even have it earlier, let's say Thursday the 14th is a possibility too, if that suits you.
So, if we have it on Thanksgiving, will the city provide?
Yes, I will buy you a turkey sandwich.
No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. I don't want the civil Thanksgiving, no.
I'll help with the cooking.
Wonder bread, oh.
That changes everything. So look at your calendars, think about those dates. And,
Okay, so that's collapsed with item 7 on the agenda, November meeting.
oh yeah, there was one other ongoing item, if you don't mind. You approved a setback reduction for Hague and Andreessen last month. That's been appealed to the city council. They'll hear it on the 12th of September.
Wait a minute.
Hague and Andreessen, it was on
Which one was that?
Orford.
On Orford.
Setback
Oh.
reduction had to do with building height though.
Can I ask who appealed it?
The neighbor who testified,
Oh.
McCormick,
That should
Yeah.
be their hands.
and he testified at that meeting in opposition, and his family appealed that. So 9/12 at the city council is the tentative lineup for
Yeah,
that.
formality.
Can we ask a question?
Sure.
Oh, I just wondered, what's the latest news on the Nicholson property? Because I went by and looked at the living wall, and it looks hideous.
Yeah,
It doesn't have plantings on it, it has weeds growing on
Yeah.
it. And it doesn't look like a living wall, even the semblance of one, so what's up with that?
Yeah, I went by last week too. I agree with your assessment. If they've planted anything, it's failed, and I'm not sure they've even planted there. So yeah, I'll be contacting Nicholson and his contractor about that. We have a bond on that and other improvements that we're holding. There's also the street in front of it, they have an obligation to repair damage to that. And the day I went by last week, there was nobody on site. There was no activity. If they're buttoning that project up for the year, they need to also button the street up. And I'll be talking to Public Works on Monday about those two issues. So.
Mark, you're talking about, the driveway?
Not the driveway, but the street in front of it. There's some construction-related damage to the street itself,
Okay.
and they need.
Because I noticed the driveway, going up is broken and.
Oh, on the other side of the street.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's from trucks that have been up there.
Yeah, Public Works is aware of that. I'm not sure how they want to handle that. I was more concerned about the travel surface of the street itself, but I'll bring that up too. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, because it's kind of upsetting to see
And I have another question.
Only one?
Oh, well, probably a lot more. One of them. I heard, now, and I know it's ridiculous to listen to rumors, but I just heard it from somebody who I consider to be maybe have some knowledge, that there are plans for the Pelican Brewery. I remember they brought that plan before us to make a kind of a housing for their employees, and it was gonna be, back behind the Pelican Brewery,
To the
There's
east.
to the
there's
east.
some hotel.
To the east of it, where there's a hotel, but they were gonna make it into like housing for their employees. It would be like 4 bedrooms and a common living room and kitchen. Remember all that?
No, you're thinking of the Haystack Gardens.
No,
No,
I'm
no.
thinking of Pelican.
Pelican Brewery.
Yeah, Pelican
You know,
Brewery.
the hotel that
Yeah.
Yeah.
the owners were here and they were talking about.
All of our discussions in recent times have just been have been about managing that as a hotel.
Yeah. Yeah.
During construction, they had employees living there.
In fact, Beachcomber is managing them.
Oh, okay.
Well, I just heard that there's some big plans to make a very upscale, fancy Pelican Brewery hotel there.
Oh.
And that's not what we had talked about at all, and that's exactly why I didn't like the plan, is because I figured it was gonna change. Once it was approved, it would change to something fancy.
They certainly haven't approached the city about that.
Okay,
So,
well,
Do they have to?
at some point, they'll submit building permits, yes.
One would hope.
Yeah, generally, the management there has been pretty forthcoming when we've asked questions. They've been responsive, so this doesn't seem like something they would hide the ball from us on.
right, I don't think it would, but I'm just saying, when I was sort of like, wow, I didn't know about that. Sounds a lot different than the original.
Yeah, I thought they weren't interested in having anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Motel,
Right.
hotel, accommodation.
The manager, one of the management people came in and said, we're not interested in being in the hotel business. If I
Right.
remember correctly.
And maybe why they have a management company running
It's
it.
being rented out right now.
Okay, so that'll be,
As hotel space or as?
I believe it's nightly.
They can certainly run a hotel there.
yeah, it's zoned for that.
Yeah.
Okay, it'd just be interesting, because it came in, I can't remember, they didn't want a variance, they wanted something.
Wasn't turn it into two lots, is that the right one?
Yeah,
Oh, maybe that-
you approved a petition to
Yeah.
put a lot line through the middle of that parking
In
lot.
case they wanted to sell it.
Yeah,
Oh, right,
I think that's probably what you're remembering then. Yeah,
that's what I remember. Okay.
that was the last time they were before you, was
Right.
with that
The
partition.
whole idea, but they presented to us, or they represented to us, that they weren't planning, that, they wanted to keep it contained, I guess, and hopefully for use for, that their employees will use it as well or something. Remember, there was that whole thing about common.
I discounted that at the time, so
Oh.
that's out of my head.
Well, someone's more cynical than me.
If it's gonna happen, it's
Talk about a toss-up.
Okay.
No,
One more, okay.
So just
Just
one
one
other item, and that is, the community service ODOT folks cleared off all of the shrubbery on the north entrance coming in, and they dropped all those clippings that are all dried out on either side of the highway, and I was wondering if somebody could say something to them about picking that up.
Cigarette butt
Oh, yeah.
I'll ask Public Works. They usually work pretty closely with ODOT on that stuff.
Fire concern.
Well, it
Yeah,
looks.
no, it was down, I didn't notice it today, I didn't notice.
No, it was there today.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was.
What?
Maybe I just got used to it, a bunch of cut.
They cut the alders and left the
Yeah,
the
Scotch
evergreens.
broom and the alders were all cut out.
Yeah.
But everything's laying dried out.
Yeah, they've left it behind. They haven't cleaned it up.
And one vehicle appears to be gone and a new one back.
Oh,
Pickup truck is back there. Up
So
there on
that-
the road.
Yesterday I was behind the Columbia Bank, in the parking lot there. And I know that stoplights, traffic lights are anathema village. But I've kind of monitored Sunset in for a few months now. And I hadn't noticed it just dealing with the traffic, congestion there. But if you're just sort of sitting in a parking lot or standing on the side of the road, you can get asphyxiated with all the exhaust fumes there. Does the city ever monitor that kind of stuff?
In Oregon, cities don't generally monitor air quality. It's a state function. Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, DEQ. But if they do any air monitoring down here, I'm not aware of it.
Well, it just struck me as kind of, it's kind of a commentary on the congestion problem at that intersection. And then I thought about all the the rumors of circle being put in down in South End with the grocery store, that stuff, I don't know if that's still going or not, but I started looking at Sunset and Hemlock, thinking that maybe a circle would be a solution there too. But the city would have to buy 4 lots or something.
Yeah, there's a lot more room at Hemlock and Warren Way than there is at Hemlock and Sunset.
That's the case, it says it's directly with the public. Coming in, I bank there, so I'm coming out of that lot pretty often. And this time of year, I just go right and then turn left at the fire station.
It's scary. It's scary coming out there.
Not if you go that way.
No, but yeah, if you turn right, but turn left, because
Yeah, I
people
don't
come
mind.
around the corner and
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, nobody stops. It's like it's a piece of Los Angeles there.
yeah, really.
Cruise right through the stuff.
And have any of you noticed people stopping right in the middle of the S curves on a sharp curve?
They all have Washington.
To wait for parking, to wait for parking on the S curve, so you're coming around the corner, you have to slam your brake on. People behind you are slamming their brakes on, and it's really dangerous.
Yeah, well, I would love to see more police action.
Jason slipped out.
Oh, it's probably anticipate.
Well, I call the non-emergency number probably once every day, so, for something. So I don't wanna call them about that, because they already think I'm fine.
Voice recognition, is that?
Oh, highways,
Okay. Any objections to the